What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to give you guys the full review of the New Balance 880 V15s. So let's get right into it. Starting out with the outsole, we have a traditional New Balance looking outsole. At least the past couple of generations have been looking like this. They look like rubber traction pods that are placed maybe anatomically, but they kind of look like all the other models that New Balance has to offer, at least in this season, like the Balos, the New Balance More V5, the 1080 V14, they all have kind of the same look. And the outsole for me performed very well. I would say that in a multitude of different weather conditions as well as surfaces, the only times I really had trouble with the traction was when I was running on sand, on asphalt. So what I mean by that is typically beaches, if you guys don't live near any beaches, they have sand a lot on the road. And when I was running where there was heavy sand on the road, I was slipping just a little bit, but I know that that is a very niche, guess, category of runners. I know not everyone runs on the beach, but that's the only time I had problems with this outsole. I also didn't really test this outsole in the rain too much, so there's that because I live in California. But overall, I felt that the traction was very good in the shoe and didn't really have any problems. Now, as for durability, I have 30 miles on this shoe, and the reason why I was taking a little bit longer to do the full review on these was because I was dealing with a little bit of an injury, but I'm back and I'm excited to be back. So I do have 30 miles on this outsole, and honestly, I think that this outsole is going to hold up very well. It seems very durable, and there still is a lot of the etchings that I saw when I first took these out of the box. So I think outsole overall was great. I think it would have been perfect if it was able to deal with those sandy conditions on the road, like I said. But again, it's kind of hard to expect any shoe to do well in those circumstances because I think a wide majority of my running shoes don't really fare well with the sand. So I think it's because, fine grains and whatnot. But overall, outsole, you're going to be good to go in this shoe, durability wise as well as traction wise. Now, moving on to the cushion setup of the New Balance 880 V15. So this was actually something that I was very excited to try in the 880 line. This is my first 880 model that I'm actually running in. And just by the looks of it and the specs, I thought it was going to be very, very comfortable. But in typical New Balance fashion, they call this a full-length Fresh Foam X Foam. I did know that the 880s typically are a little bit on the firmer side, but I wasn't expecting it to, I guess, be this firm, or I was expecting it to maybe soften up as I put more miles on them. But overall, I just didn't really like the cushioning that much. Especially for the looks of it, it looks like it's going to be a very cushioned and very comfortable daily trainer, but that's just not the feeling that I got. Now, you can take that as a very bad thing or a very good thing, depending on what you're looking for in a daily trainer. So what I mean by that is if you're looking for a daily trainer that's gonna be soft and good for recovery runs, easy runs and whatnot, I don't think that this is the shoe for you. But if you are looking for a neutral shoe that is very stable and doesn't really give you too much and really makes you work for the paces that you're hitting or the mileage that you're hitting, you wanna train your muscles a lot, this shoe is going to be fantastic because this foam is very firm in my opinion. Even though there is quite a bit of stack height, I would say that that shouldn't deter you because I did have decent ground feel in these, and even though it is a bulkier daily trainer, I still felt like the ground feel as well as I still felt like there wasn't too much under the foot, if that makes sense. So overall, it's just a very firm ride. I personally wasn't a big fan of it. Now, if you asked me this around 1 to 2 years ago when I was just starting to run and maybe my running form wasn't as good, or I just wanted to run a little bit slower and I wanted something really stable to keep me injury free and my mileage was also a lot lower, I think that this is a fantastic option because it is going to give you that stability and it's not going to do too much. Like with a lot of these higher stack shoes or the really soft shoes or the carbon plated shoes, I think that those aren't very good for beginners just because in my experience, when I did run in those, my knees would start to hurt, my hips and ankles and stuff. I just wasn't ready for those shoes just yet. But if you prefer something a little bit more dull or boring or more stable, I think that this shoe is going to work very, very well for you. Now, I do want to know I've done all different types of paces in this shoe. I think that this shoe honestly worked best when I was running a little bit faster. I actually recently just did a 10-mile run. It was kind of like my entry back into long runs because I was a little bit injured at first, and I did it at a pace of 8:42, which for me is blazing fast. That's like my marathon pace. And I would say say that this shoe held up very well, but since I did that one yesterday, I am feeling the effects in my body from this cushion setup. I do feel a little bit more sore. Now that could be due to the lack of effort that I've been putting into my training and due to my injury, maybe I'm just more sore than normal. But I also think that if I was wearing a softer shoe or a more impact absorbing shoe, I wouldn't be kind of this sore. So take that with a grain of salt. I know that's not super scientific, but I just feel like if you're looking for something very, very soft or very, very comfortable, I don't think the 880 line is going to be for you, or at least this model. And yeah, don't let that Fresh Foam X marketing fool you, because I think that this is just so different than what they put on the More V5 as well as the 1080 V14 and the New Balance Balos. So that's going to pretty much wrap up my thoughts on the cushion setup of the 880 V15. I think it's solid, but there's just a lot of better options at the same price point of $140. Moving on to the materials of the 880 V15. So I do want to touch upon fit as well as just materials on the upper in general. So regarding fit, I would say that these run true to size. If you guys have been following a little bit of my content, you do know that I really, really like New Balance sizing. I think it's very consistent, and the 1080 V14 Balos as well as the New Balance More V5 fit my foot personally very well. So I was very excited to try this shoe. But I will say that this fit is not as nice as those three other models that I just mentioned, and that is because I think that there is a little bit more room in the forefoot, as well as the upper in general just doesn't feel as maybe premium as those other three, or maybe premium isn't the right word, but I just feel like the materials don't conform to my foot as well as those shoes do. It still has a very, very thick mesh that's a little bit more rigid, and same with those other three models that I talked about, with maybe the exception being the Balos. I think the Balos has the softest material out of all of those shoes, but I just felt like this material wasn't really too forgiving, and it kind of gave an uncomfortable feeling sometimes when I was running, as well as it gave a very bulky feeling from an upper standpoint. So with the upper feeling a little bit more bulky, as well as the kind of dead midsole, it sometimes felt like I was running in bricks with these shoes, and it just felt like a little bit confusing, you know, like if you have a very firm or responsive foam and you have a really lightweight upper, then that's a really fast shoe. You know, I feel good running fast for short distances. And if you have a really plush midsole or a very high stack height like this shoe does, then you're expecting to maybe run longer distances, or you're expecting to run really easy paces. But in all of those cases, I feel like the New Balance 880 V15 was kind of like in the in-between, and it just wasn't really good at the thing that I wanted it to be good at, or just like one type of run. I guess it's kind of okay overall, but it just wouldn't be my first option in my opinion. But yeah, getting back to the upper, I think that the upper materials are just okay. They're a typical mesh, and they're a little bit thicker. Ventilation wasn't very good. The fit also, I think it was true to size, but it just wasn't the most comfortable. I actually got one of my first toe blisters in this shoe, and I don't know if it's because the ventilation wasn't very good, or maybe my toes were squeezed up too tight in the front, which it didn't feel like it. So I'm not gonna blame the shoes for that one, but just something to note. And then the heel lockdown was actually okay. I did do the runner's loop, but I did have a little bit of heel slippage on the right foot. So that's just my personal experience. So overall, I think that the upper definitely could have been better. I wish that they used a little bit lighter materials and also a little bit thinner materials. It just feels a little bit too bulky for my liking, as well as just the whole shoe in general just feels really bulky. If a shoe is bulky for me, I want it to be really comfortable and really soft, because at least if it's bulky and soft, then I can use it for easy runs. But this shoe, like I said, it was a little bit confusing for me just because it wasn't super fast. It also wasn't good for super slow runs. It felt a little bit heavier on the foot and bulky, but then it wasn't really comfortable or plush. So overall, I think it's pretty safe to say that I think that this shoe is okay to below average for me, especially at the price point of $140. I think that nowadays the shoe market is getting pretty competitive. I think that there are better options priced at $140 than this shoe. If you are a huge New Balance fan, or like I said, you want something very stable and quote unquote boring, just so that you don't get injured and you maybe don't run super high mileage, I think that this shoe could work for you. And if you like the way that it looks and you want to wear it casually and go on a walk and stuff, I think that this shoe is going to perfectly suit your needs. But if you're interested in getting the best bang for your buck for $140, I do think that there are better daily trainers out there. For example, for me personally, I like the Nike Pegasus 41, which you can really get on sale nowadays for maybe $100 or below. You can get the Saucony Ride 18, which I think is one of my favorite daily trainers out right now. And then you can also get the A6 Super Blast, or sorry, not the Super Blast, the A6 Nova Blast 5, which is also currently out for $140. So all those shoes are priced at the same price as the New Balance 880 V15, and all of them kind of have similar stack heights and specs, but I just think that those shoes overall are better, whether it's because they're lighter, whether it's because the fit is a little bit better, the support is a little bit better, or the cushioning is just a little bit more comfortable. I just think that New Balance kind of missed out on these. Now, if they were priced at $110 or $120, it'd be a different conversation. I think that I would actually recommend this shoe, but since it is priced at $140, I'm gonna have to say these are no-go just because there are better options for the same price on the market right now. So if you are looking for the 880 line and you're really stuck on New Balance or you're stuck on the 880 line, I would try to recommend trying on the 880 V14s, the last year's model, because I think you can save a couple bucks on those. And maybe it has a lower stack height, and I haven't really tried their cushioning out, so maybe you want to try those on, but I just don't think that this model is worth the full price of $140. So that's going to pretty much wrap up the video and the full review. Thank you guys for your patience. Again, I was dealing with a little bit of an injury, Achilles and ankles and this and that. So like I feel now that I'm almost 100% and I've been starting to put a little bit more mileage back on, also starting to train for a 5K as well as my Long Beach Marathon that's coming in October. So really excited to get back into running and really lock in and also try out all these new shoes. The Clifton 10 first run review is actually gonna drop tomorrow. I know I said in yesterday's video that I was gonna drop it today, but I wanted to really get this full review out on the 880 V15s first before I drop the Clifton 10 first run review. I'll probably run in the Clifton 10s right now and then I'll drop that video tomorrow. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate all your support and all of you that consistently keep up with my channel. It really means a lot to me, and I will catch you guys in the next one.